You're tuning into the Wild, Weird, and Sometimes Normal podcast. If you have a story or a guest recommendation that you think others need to hear, email me at wildweirdandsometimesnormal@gmail.com. Let's get this started. Alex and Brett, kick it!
Wild. Wild. Weird. And sometimes wild. Weird. Wild. Weird. Wild. Weird. Wild. Weird. And sometimes normal.
On this episode, I'm joined by the hardcore band Measures. Hailing from Florence, New Jersey, the fellows discussed coming together and making a name in a competitive business. Trevor, Jonah, and Shane give insight into how they started playing music, writing songs, and booking shows. I personally know Shane, so I was busting his chops about not letting me into the band, especially since I have an awesome death metal scream. Lucky for you, my mic had other ideas and cut the majority of the dying cat noise, so I'm sorry if there was a hard edit in there, as I removed the whole thing. Another bit of business is that my hosting provider added a new feature where will automatically edit long pauses, the ums and ahs out of a conversation. Overall, I think it did pretty good, and I went back and cleaned up some of the harder cuts. Hopefully it gets a little better, and I do too as I keep using it. Anyway, back to the band. An awesome conversation with a great group of guys. Stream their music, attend a show, and let them know you heard them on Wild and Weird. Enjoy the show. Are you looking to buy a home in New Jersey, escape the city and move to the suburbs? Finally purchase a vacation home on the lake or down the shore? Maybe you're one of the lucky ones who are retiring and moving out of state. If so, let me help you. Keller Williams and the Real Estate Professional Group have what you need to make your goals come true. Reach out and have a conversation with someone who will put you first. Contact Brian McCoach at 856-321-1212 or email brianmccoach@kw.com. Are you looking for CBD for your pet? My friends at Pure Pet Wellness have what you need. They use the highest quality ingredients. While other companies may use synthetic oils in their CBD, Pure Pet Wellness uses organic ingredients. Organically grown hemp, organic coconut oil, organic shea butter, organic beeswax, and that's just to name a few. A family-owned and operated company that also offers fast shipping. Go to purepetwellness.com for all your pet's CBD needs and use the discount code WILD and WEIRD at checkout. That's WILD, A-N-D, WEIRD. Treat your animal right. Go to purepetwellness.com. Welcome to another episode of Wild, Weird, and Sometimes Normal. I'm your host, Brian, and today my guest is the hardcore band Measures, and I have Trevor, Jonah, and Shane. What's going on, fellas?
What's going on, man?
So I know Shane from my regular life. We're missing one guy in Measures. And when I first met Shane, he told me he's in a hardcore band. I was like, dude, I can do like the Axl scream. Like, you need a fifth guy. And he like kind of ghosted me. He's like, nah, I think we're good. I think we're good. We don't need like the high pitched scream. I've got it for you when you guys are ready.
All right, let's hear it, man. I'm ready.
Just like the walk into the jungle. Like
Yeah.
you guys talk about Measures, man. What's happening with it?
Yeah, man. So we're in a little bit of a lull right now. We have a show coming up in May. That's our next thing, on our plate. So right now we're just kind of working on getting a new line of merch out. We're remastering our original EP that we put out a couple years ago. So we're gonna try and get that out in the meantime. And we actually have something ready to go after that. So, we're just trying to line everything up so we can flow right into the next batch of shows and just trying to stay busy. You don't want to hit a spot where you're not really doing much for a while because it takes a while to get back into it once you fall out of it.
You want to ride that momentum, and once the juices are going, just keep it going.
100%.
Awesome, man. So do you guys grow up together? You meet in college?
Yeah, so we all grew up in Florence. Me and Jonah have actually been playing together since we were like 13, started doing like Metallica and Megadeth for years. And then he ended up auditioning for the band. It was called Invasion at the time, back in like 2019. That's when he met Trevor, who was, this is his house. This is our like home base. We've always practiced here. So then I joined, I came into the fold and they, Jonah invited me over to audition. Yeah. So we're all like from the same area. I actually had like once we all met, we discovered we had a lot of mutual friends that just like never ran into each other. So
that's crazy. It's like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but like the 3 degrees of Florence. You're like, how did I never see you guys?
Exactly. Like Florence is so small too. So, you run into everybody.
You know, we're at the corner store. No, I was at the other one. You're like, shit, man, like just crazy times. So you guys all grew up just loving heavy metal and hardcore, or how'd that come about?
Pretty much. I mean, I know I was mostly into like rap thrash metal till I like kind of got in the band. And, like other guys helped me like branch out. But I know like, but you guys,
Yeah, I mean, growing up, there's just a lot of whatever, like Guitar Hero 3, point 3. And then I hit a point where I was 13 where I only listened to like Metallica, Megadeth, Iron Maiden, and like Slayer for a few years too many. So that kind of built my like foundation, I guess, of alternative music was really just Metallica because that band rocks.
I feel like that's like the natural progression of any person who's in a band ever, especially if they're like a guitar player or something. You ask them, who'd you start listening to? And everybody tells you, I started listening to Metallica and I started listening to Megadeth. And, you know, you're 13 years old playing guitar and you want to play everything off Ride the Lightning and the Black Album and Countdown to Extinction, Hangar 18. And then eventually, once you start getting older, your taste kind of develops a little bit more. Not to say there's anything wrong with that, but you want to branch out to see what else is kind of going on, what else is available for you, because you can only listen to the same album 30 times a day for so many years.
yeah. You also tend to go back on your word a lot. I know me and Jonah, we were like 13, 14. Like we were all about just Metallica, like Pantera, Megadeth, like all like the really heavy, like older bands. And any of the new like metalcore bands that were coming out, like Bring Me the Horizon, we would just immediately like trash them because they were like not like poppy, but they were way more like radio friendly and like and more in the mix. So we were just like, no, like that's fake metal, like screw that. And then like we joined the band in 2019, and Trevor puts us on to a bunch of like new metal core, and we're like, shit, man, like we really trashed those bands like prematurely, definitely. So like,
Well, it's hard
yeah.
because in the '80s you had MTV backing up this type of music. It was out there. That was, I mean, it was kind of mainstream at that point. I mean, unless you want to consider like Richard Marx or somebody, but like, you know, like Metallica was always on. You know, it's again played on the radio. You know, Megadeth's out there, and the bands we're talking about. And then the '90s, you know, a typical alternative comes around. You know, the Nirvana, the Pearl Jams, and stuff like this, and pushes these guys out. And you know, for you guys to find them, did you have like older brothers or like your parents or somebody like who's putting a Guitar Hero?
Like 2 or like 64 like CD bowling thing that you just spin through.
Yeah.
And I remember specifically it was Master of Puppets, it was Peace Sells, but Who's Buying? And then it was the first Van Halen record. And those three, it was like I would just play them all day and just listen to them in my basement by myself and just like this shit is awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. The same thing, except my way of going through it was I would look to when I pull out the CD covers and whatever cover looked the coolest for me. That's what I listened to first. I still remember picking out Dirt by Alice in Chains, and then that album opens up with Them Bones, and I was like, oh wow, these guys are ripping right now. This album's a great album. And then you just kind of work your way through. You just kind of, I feel like everybody kind of listens. Whether you either grow to love what your parents listen to, or you learn to hate it, but you still listen to it like regardless. Especially like the old CDs. Like I spent hours just picking CDs out of anyone that was cool to me. Just the cover art. The cover art was cool. It went into my immediate listen spot right there and then.
Yeah, it's tough. So in high school, this is like late '90s, and I think I had like 4 CD books that had like 100 a piece. So like, you know, you're talking about texting and driving now. This is like maneuvering through CD books and like through 50 things. Like, no, I wanted this, or we're gonna listen to this one song and do whatever. And you know, it's tough that like I remember my dad, like I would see that he had the Best of the Doors or he had, you know, the Eagles or something. And I'm like, you know, like, what is this? And put it on, like, oh, that's actually, you know, pretty cool. And it's funny, you know, either like your parents' music sucks or like you grow to love it. And I remember my friend's mom would pick us up to go to school and she just had opera on the whole time. I'm like, what? Like, this is a 3-minute drive. Like, you just like put on the radio, like, you know, put on Pierre or somebody, like, help me out here. And it's painful. And now I have children. My son's 10 and my daughter's 7. It's like I'm a steward of the music. Like, what should I introduce them to, and at what point? And right now, I have my son on like the Blink 182s and stuff like that, and he's listening to like, you know, their first album and all that stuff, and going up with that. And he likes the lead singer of Gaslight Anthem. He likes Gaslight Anthem. So like all the stuff that I would go see now, he's on to. But some of the classic rock and things like that, or even like the Metallicas and stuff, like they just don't know. And it's my fault because I got rid of all those CDs and put them on an iPod, and now that iPod is somewhere. I don't even know where it's at.
Yeah, that's what sucks. It's not getting like nothing like that's getting played anywhere unless you have like satellite. So there's really no way like, you know, at that age, unless you know about it, unless you have somebody like you're, you know, like if you were showing it to them.
Yeah, and so like even when you guys were growing up, you know, there's not like this fake music. Like my kids would be like, "Oh, I'm gonna listen to like Kids Bop," and even if like the song was good for what it was, I'm like, you know, I'm like, okay, when you at 5, like we're done with this nonsense. We're listening to the real artist, and then we'll start like going into their catalog a little bit. But it's just like, they have all these covers of like kid friendly, and it's like, could we just listen to the real stuff? And since the Super Bowl, we're like slightly, I mean, you're like, hey Alexa, play the clean version of Lil Jon, and you're like, wait, there's no such thing as a clean John. There's a clean version, and like maybe you guys shouldn't be listening to this for like 15 years. But you want to show them the way on like certain things, and I'm rambling here, but like in the 80s and the 90s, I feel like your musical taste was, just smaller and tighter. And now it's just like everything, but like I want to try to steer them in the right direction, but also let them choose,
They got to
make
carry
the
on.
right choice. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, they got to carry on your legacy of good music taste.
That's as long as I think it's good. That's what it is. Trevor, you're the lead singer. Where did you develop the style? Like, are you just in your bedroom and your parents like, what is wrong with him? Or like, did like you're just doing this for friends? And do you like getting punched in the face?
Sometimes, I mean, sometimes it does happen, but in all honesty, when we started out the band, when I first started the original one, I said I'd do anything but sing. That was like the one thing I said that I wouldn't do. So when we first started off, I was a rhythm guitar player, and then I went and found Jonah, and Jonah's a much better guitar player than I am. So I said, "You're gonna play lead." And since I'm just doing rhythm stuff, I'll do backup stuff. And I started working with our then at the time vocalist, How to Scream. And I kind of picked that up myself through some of the bands that I listened to, or even like the old school stuff, like even like listening to Phil on like Pantera and stuff like that. Like he still has stuff where he's like screaming like crazy, or you listen to some of the newer bands like North Lane or like Make Them Suffer and Alpha Wolf, just kind of doing some of the stuff that they do. But for the most part, I just kind of adopted it. I kind of took my fries from them, and I take a lot of like my growls and low stuff from bands like Boundaries and Kubla Khan and stuff like that. So it just kind of naturally happened. And I just fell into being a singer when we had a lineup change later on down the line. It really wasn't planned. Unfortunately, that's how some things are in life. It seems that things just have a way of moving themselves in the spots that they need to be in.
Some of the best things happen that way. Have you done any research like on YouTube? Right, you'll hear people like blowing out their throat, or like kind of like the Guitar Hero thing, or the karaoke one that they have. I cannot sing. Like I'll try stuff, and then like the whole next day, I'm like, holy shit! Like I never practiced this, and like my throat is shot. Do you have
Yeah,
like techniques that you do?
yeah. So I mean, the big thing, honestly, that I think a lot of people don't realize is when it comes to doing vocal styles that we're doing, a lot of it is all about your preparation, and not even so much like trying to practice it and do it, but it's the work that goes in before and after the show, right? Making sure you're drinking a lot, making sure you're sleeping a lot. If you're playing a show at a bar or a venue and there's 6 bands going on and you're the second band up and you're playing a 30 to 40 minute set and you're screaming for 30 to 40 minutes, you don't stay around and start talking because you're going to do more damage to your voice as it goes on. You have to kind of be a little antisocial and rest your voice a little bit. Not drinking too much alcohol is another big thing. And then the other thing is too is work, like the actual preparation of doing it is working yourself up to it. It's the same thing when you start your car in the morning. You don't start your car when it's cold out and instantly hit the highway going 80 miles per hour. You got to warm it up as it starts, right? So you're taking yourself through progressions that you have to where you start to feel comfortable. Me, I do that if we're going somewhere. So if we're playing a show and it's about 30 minutes to an hour away, my warm up is in the car over there and I get that started and I do that then. And that's kind of like the big thing on trying to do that and just taking care of yourself and minimizing your chance of damage. Because unfortunately, a lot of the screams we do, they're classified as destructive screams. You're gonna basically kind of hurt yourself sometimes, but you can minimize the possible damage or how much you do hurt yourself by doing things the right way or taking enough preparation time to make sure that you're doing what you can to make it viable and safe in the long term.
80s band, they're chugging Jack Daniels, they're ripping darts nonstop, and they sound great for that time. And then a lot of them haven't aged as well. You're seeing Vince Neil of Motley Crue, who isn't even that hard of a singer, just they're just doing heavy metal. He doesn't sound anywhere close to being the same anymore. Axl Rose doesn't really sound like it's a different Axl. And you'll listen to some of the softer singers like a Billy Joel or somebody. The guy's like 80 years old. I haven't seen him recently, but I've seen some like YouTube clips of him within the last few years, and like it just kind of sounds like an older Billy Joel, but still somewhat of the same voice. Like, do you think this is just some of those hey, you're 20, you're dumb, you're a millionaire, you've got models, you've got, whatever it is. Like they're just not taking care of their lifestyle, and people have just gotten smarter now.
Yeah, because it's not the same as like playing a guitar, right? Your guitar goes out of tune, you retune it back up, and E will always sound like an E as long as you retune it. For our vocal cords, especially the longer you do things or the less care you take, you actually develop like polyps inside your vocal tract, which you see a lot of singers get that taken care of for not taking care of their voice so well. Ollie Sykes from Bringing the Horizon had that done. As of recently, M Shadows from Avenged Sevenfold had to get surgery done for that. And it took Ollie Sykes a long time to get back to where he is, and he's still not 100%. M Shadows recently, they just went back on tour, and I think any Avenged Sevenfold fan, as great as he is, can still listen to it and realize that this is not the same M Shadows that we saw on even Waking the Falling, City of Evil, their self-titled album, Nightmare. It all comes down to your preparation. That's the big thing. It's really about taking care of yourself and understanding, like, hey, you only have one voice. It's not like if you break your guitar, you go get another guitar. You break a bass, you go get another bass. You break any of your drum kits, get another piece. No, you have your voice. That's it. So you have to make that last, and you have to do whatever you can to preserve it for as long as possible if that's what you want to do. Some dudes don't care and they're only doing it for fun, and they're planning on only being in a band for a few years, and they're going to go crazy, and that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you want longevity and you want to be able to do it for a prolonged period of time, yeah, you have to do your due diligence and do your homework on making sure you keep your voice in check. And especially if you're one of these touring bands who's playing every other night or every night, it's wildly important that you're getting your rest and staying hydrated as much as you can, trying not to overuse your voice afterwards, because that's where most people will get their injuries from. I mean, you've probably been at like a noisy bar or something like that, and then you're trying to talk to somebody who's literally me to Jonah away, and it sounds like you're screaming just to talk to them. Those types of environments after you sing are just devastating to your voice, especially after you're going on for 30 to 45 minutes. So it's really just doing that.
Yeah, that's tough that you reach the pinnacle. Like you're taking care of your voice, so that's great. And I wish you guys all the success that you're gonna want and have. But you have somebody who has reached what they wanted, and they're just like, hey man, like I'm just gonna rock out here, and like whatever happens, whatever happens. This is like the cliff divers, like in the just the gliding suits, and it's like, oh, I might hit a side of a mountain, but I might not. And it's like, dude, like you guys, like the voice, the lead singer, like yeah, you can replace guitars. If your guitarist quits, you can get another guy up to speed eventually. That'll sound pretty good. But like Eddie Vedder is Pearl Jam. Kurt Cobain was Nirvana. It's very hard it's impossible to replace these people because it's not them anymore.
100%, especially because everybody sounds different. There's not really a lot of two singers that sound the same, you know? So even if you can get somebody else to fill in, like you said, it's not going to be the same. It won't sound the same. A lot of people, whether they actually know the lyrics or not, they're still listening to the melody that comes with it on the singing. So it's really like, it's one of those things where you just have to do it. You have to be due diligent as a singer, and it sucks. It sucks sometimes because I would love to just chill out and have like 5 beers after I play a show at a bar or something like that and get messed up. But like I can't. I have to do what I can to make sure that I can keep doing this because I love doing this. And
Like
I don't want.
chamomile tea with honey, and you're just hanging out there in the corner and just kind of like waving to people, or like, oh, I'll text you hello or something.
Yeah, pretty much. If people come up and talk to me, if for anybody who does listen to come to our shows, don't feel like I'm not going to talk to you. You can come up and talk to me as much as you want. It's just you're not going to see me, going around high fiving and moshing and stuff like that. Especially after we're done, I more or less try to keep my voice as best as I can and try to get as much rest afterwards.
That's awesome, man. I always just find that interesting. Deep down somewhere in me, I have a lead singer that like I want to be, but like, the problem of not being able to sing, I think is like the number one part. And then also, I keep always saying that tall people can't be lead singers. I'm 6'3", so you just look very strange as you stand up there. You have like these long arms that are like what is like, is he like the octopus thing at the car wash? Like what's happening here? But like not being able to sing is like number one. But I'm always just fascinated by lead singers. I think it's like such a cool thing to like take control of the stage, and then like you are controlling the crowd too as you're doing it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a big thing talking to the crowd. You want to make sure that people are into it and they feel like, because it's a shared experience. Like we're on stage and we're playing the songs. But if nobody out there in the crowd is vibing to what we're doing, our energy is definitely down. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And that goes with any band. The more energy that you get out of the crowd and interacting with them and they're interacting with you back. I speak from myself, probably these guys and any other band out there. Any band would love to play to a crowd that's going crazy for their shit rather than people who are just kind of just sitting there waiting for the next band to come on.
You can see even back when where I'm sitting on the drums, I'm like, oh damn, I'm like, damn, that energy's down right now. Like we gotta do something and get it back up.
You guys like just internally have all this thing like Shane, you're like, dude, like I'm keeping the beat, man. Like without me, you guys fall apart. And Jonah's like, dude, without the guitar, like fuck these guys. They wouldn't even know what they were doing. And then Trevor's
Sometimes
like, yeah,
randomly just have a thought during your song. You're like, man, if I just stop playing right now, like what would happen?
yeah, just all falls apart. Go back to the opera music. Trevor just has it in him somewhere. He's like, hey, if they're not going to play the music, I just
Yeah,
warned me.
yeah. If everything goes quiet, we have a tape. We just hit that and it plays opera. Like
Yeah, play, that's it. Don't tell the fans that they might try you out on that one. Like, hey, everybody, on the count of three, just everyone shut up and we'll see what happens. That's awesome. All right, so you guys form in Florence. You know, you're practicing, right? Some like garages and stuff, basements, people's houses. Like, how do you get your first show? Where are you going to do this? Like, where's it happening?
So our first shows, like our first handful of shows, were at the same VFW. It was an old VFW. I don't think it's a VFW anymore, but just like this old like club in Roebling, which is like part of Florence Township. Our first like 4 shows that we put together were there. Whether it was like we would have like Halloween parties there, just like have them in the spring, whenever we could. And look, we were really having a hard time branching out until like I was at a show at Starland Ballroom seeing Under Roof and Spirit Box, and I just happened to meet a drummer of another band who we've just been like we made they're like a connection with us now. We met other bands through them, so now like, it's just like got to do like a lot of networking and meet like bands that are also trying to grow. So it's like beneficial for everybody. You want like people who are responsible and accountable who are really trying to like increase their reach like we are. So we know it's it's going to be worth it to go out and play with them.
Do you think this era of YouTube? I mean, obviously it's probably a little bit easier, but like it's also hard for someone to find someone on YouTube. There's music that I've heard that I would never hear on the radio. I would never randomly go buy a ticket to a show. But do you find you can branch out more? Or do you have people listening like your Spotify streams? You're like somebody in Japan listen to us. They're like that's crazy.
Yeah, we've like right now I think we're sitting at around like 40 monthly listeners, like 35 or something like that. So who are those people? We have no idea. Are they our friends? Are they people who have like seen us at other shows in like other states? We get like a Spotify Wrapped, as I'm sure like you do at the end of every year. It tells us like where our listeners are at.
It's kind of all over. Yeah, I think it's also going back to like the whole YouTube thing and stuff like that. I think it's a great thing, and I think it's also kind of a negative in its own right. Being that dual-edged sword there, where yeah, you can experience a lot, but there's a lot out there for you to experience, and you can get buried amongst a lot of other things. And it also kind of it draws away from people's attention spans, right? So that's the other thing. Like, not only do you have to put stuff out, you got to put stuff out relatively quick to stay up on the trend amongst other people that are putting stuff out. So algorithms promote you. You got to do something that's going to come out and grab attention quick. Because if it doesn't grab attention quick, people are going to kind of zone out. And I mean, I'll be honest. There's songs that I listened to before where I listened to like the first 30 seconds. I'm like, this is not it right now. Next song, it's good and bad. You got to take it for what it is, and you got to kind of play to the strengths of it and do what you can with it.
This is my problem with satellite radio. Like even up through shit, like I don't know, like I don't think I had satellite till like 2015 or something. Like my car just never had it. I would listen to Pandora or whatever it is. So even before then, so let's just say up to 2000, I'd put the radio on whatever station I wanted and listen to that all day. You listen to the commercials, you deal with it, you listen to the great song, you listen to the decent song, you listen to the shitty song, hoping the next one's amazing. And once I had satellite and this like the same thing like YouTube, like you're always just like, what's next? Like, oh, I'm listening to an awesome STP song. I'm loving this. But on the other station, is there something I love even more? And like you just go to that and you just like keep switching. And it's really hard. Like there's stuff that I love. There's stuff I would never turn off of the radio if, unless it was next to me to do it. But if I had to get up, I'm like, well, no, I like listening to this. But if it's just on your fingertip to just switch through or just skip or go past, like you really have to come out like guns blazing and grab people's attention and hope that they stick there.
Mm-hmm. That's why it's so important to just keep putting out content, whether it's like music on Spotify or like social media posts or anything that just like keeps you in the eye of, the people you want listening to you. Which I think like when we like peak at our like monthly listeners, it's when like I think last summer we had a couple releases like pretty close together, and we got up to like almost 200 monthly listeners. Then which is like by far our, it's not like any. Obviously, we want to grow from there, but compared to like the 35 or 40 that we're at now, like that's a good increase. If you keep that up, put something out. We're at the point where we could probably put something out like every month or two if we wanted to, just like a song every couple months. That would really just keep us like in the algorithm, like throwing us in people's like playlists that they create and stuff. And that's what gets you like all the listeners.
Yeah, I mean, of course, like we all want the most listeners possible, and you log in every day and you're like, holy shit, like this is my number for today. That's crazy. Like this episode blew up or this song blew up. And you're saying about 40 and you want more. Like I hope you get that. But also those 40 people, those 40 listeners, like they're there for you already. Like that is like your permanent fan base. And it's cool when you have 200 or you hit a hot topic, whatever it is, and an episode blows up. I had an episode about Malaysian flight MH370, and this guy did this whole video about 3 UFO orbs and had to like disappear, and he was on. That thing spread like wildfire. I cannot imagine how many people listen to it. Well, I mean, I know how many people listen to it. I have a hard time fathoming like the people who were like searching this out to find this, and then I see what countries they're from and all this stuff, and it's like, what? Like, man, I wish that was like lightning in the bottle. I wish I could have for every episode. But then like my numbers are pretty steady or higher depending on the episode. I'm like that's my fan base there, and then I have to hope that like they tell a friend. You have to hope that the dude brings his girlfriend and she brings her girlfriend and his buddy, and now you have like 3 more people that are going to listen, and like you just grow like wildfire.
Yeah, that's kind of like what we always say. Like, we'll always take any show, no matter where it's at, because like whether it's like 1 or 2 people are there, one of those people likes it, they're gonna go out and they're gonna tell other people, and you never know like what's gonna happen from there on out. There could be like a very select like group of people that really, really like it, and then they start telling everybody about you.
Yeah, you never know who they are or their neighbor is or their dad or their cousin or somebody, and they're like, dude, like you're signing new bands. I just heard this like new, it's the Marty McFly and Back to the Future. Like, hey, you know that new sound you're looking for? Like, you never know who's there like watching your show.
Yeah.
That's cool. So who does the main songwriting?
Honestly, we all contribute like pretty equally, I have to say. Whether it's like I'll just like it always starts off with just like a random riff being sent. I'm like, I'll just send like a drum beat that I really like I'm messing with, and like they'll send a riff back, and then we just like keep working it until we like have it set. We're like, okay, like this could be like a verse or this could be a breakdown or whatever. We just like put it, it's like a placeholder for something and like build around it. Our bassist Nick is actually he's really good at like mixing stuff and like putting a bunch of like effects on things. So he'll send us like he's also really good at doing like MIDI with electric drums. So he'll send us like a full like part, like kind of put together. So we have like a really good idea of what he's thinking of. And he's been like, it's really good. It's really nice to have like another person like him, like really contributing. Like ever since I think we brought him in like the end of 2022, and he came like ready to go, like ready to write, ready to play shows, and it's been great.
It's like his electric drums are trying to steal your job, man.
Yeah, man. Honestly, I felt a little threatened at first. I'm like, no, I don't mind it. Yeah, you can write my stuff. Go ahead. I'll kick my feet up.
That's awesome. Do you guys try to like if you're banging out a few songs, like, hey, we're going to sit around. So maybe that's more the question. If you are writing a new song, is like you're always writing a new song, and you're at work, you're at lunch, you're driving home, you're like, oh shit, like that lyric kind of hits, or like, oh, like let me put together, these notes on the. Obviously, you can tell how musical I am. Like, let me put together these beats on the drum. Or is it like you're sitting down, like you said, Thursday night rehearsal, we're recording on a Thursday. You guys are going to sit around like, hey, tonight we're writing. Like, we're going to focus on like words, and we're going to focus on, putting something together.
Once we're like in the process of writing and we know like that's our main focus, we do have nights where we're like, yeah, like that we're gonna come here and like work on this. Like we're gonna work on the lyrics for the song. We gotta work on like a verse or like find like a part for a certain song. In terms of like when we're just starting out, like it could be like anytime, like anybody can send a riff, especially if we're in like a downtime where we don't have a show coming up and like we have time to like write a song, like absolutely. Any time of the year, any time of the month, like we're sending riffs to each other, whether like we're putting it on the back burner or we're like, hey, let's work on this now. It's really anytime.
Do you try to keep your songs, your lyrics in a direction, or you're open for whatever? Like, is there a theme?
Yeah, for most songs, if there's like a couple songs we're like really struggling on the lyrics, we'll like try and like fudge stuff and be like, oh, this just sounds cool. Let's just say let's just say this. It doesn't really go with the theme, but who's really gonna who's gonna know?
You're just projecting it to come true in the future. That's all it is.
Exactly.
Yeah. Trevor, do you find there's better words, even individual or phrases to sing, where you're like, no, just change that. Like, I won't be able to, that wouldn't come off as good for the crowd, or that would be harder for me to accomplish and flow into the next one.
all the time, but usually that only comes up. So, well, typically when we get to the lyrics aspect of things, it's typically, as Shane said, like we already have the full song blueprinted out at that point. So everything's done. The only exception being the lyrics. And we'll go through and we start patching in lyrics as we're going. And then we always kind of keep things up for tweaking. But specifically when we get to actually laying down final recording tracks, with the lyrics is when sometimes we'll change out certain things just so things can flow better. Or sometimes it's a whole bunch of words and I had to scream for like 20 plus seconds and I don't have enough breath to grab back around on the turnaround again. So we do change things, not a whole bunch. And it's usually small tweaks that we do. We come to those when we get to the recording process to see how is that actually going to be when we kind of do it live. Because when we record stuff, it is kind of in a way imagining how we're going to do it live and be able to replicate that. Because we don't want to record something which sounds great on a recording, but there's no possible or feasible way for us to do it live because that's kind of disingenuous to us. We want people to hear us on Spotify or Apple Music, YouTube, wherever they listen to music, and then come see us and they think to themselves, oh my God, those guys sound exactly like they do just on Spotify and YouTube and all that. That's like really important to us. So that's more or less where those tweaks kind of come from, more or less trying to get things to fit and be able for us to physically do certain things live.
I love that that's your goal because there's so many times I would go to the Warp Tour all the time, all through the 90s and early 2000s. And, all these bands, and they're great. I mean, they're up and coming. They're, a couple years older than me, and you're just like seeing their passion. And it's like, this, the 70s punk, but, it's like I hate pop punk. It just sounds like you're trying to say like Britney Spears with punk. But, so you're having this like modern punk type of thing. And like their sweet spot is like, 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And on the record, it sounds like one thing, and then you're there and you're like, what the fuck? Like, I would thank God this was like a general ticket. I didn't spend $25 to like see you individually.
Yeah, I've had that experience, but I can say they're more on the hard rock side. But like I remember seeing Seether play at East Stroudsburg at the Sherman, maybe like 2012, 2013. That whole time I thought to myself, like, they're a simple setup. You got a guitar player who sings with Sean Morgan, one drummer, one bass player. Sometimes live they'll bring on another guitar player to fill in some accessory parts, but like you listen to them and you listen to their records, it's the same thing. It's 100% the same thing, and it sounds like it's actually them. And I've seen other bands before where, not to name names or throw shade at other bands, but like you said, you go there and you're like, holy shit, is this still like the same band that I'm hearing? Like that doesn't even sound close. And I said the other thing that's with that too, especially is like vocalists, because I feel like that's a big thing you notice. Obviously, when you do things live, they're going to sound somewhat different. But when we mix and record our vocals, we want to make sure that it's relatively close to what we're going to be able to do live and make sure that people don't think. Because the other thing that we don't want is we don't want people to think that we're faking it either, is the thing. So it's important for us to make sure that we can do things the same recorded as we do live and curtail things that way.
Like try to stay authentic to the sound that you're creating in the studio.
If it sounds too different or it sounds too like generated, it doesn't have the same connection to people. It doesn't feel the same way.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard, I guess, with the venue or, some of the stuff that they're providing or the acoustics are there. But if you can try to maintain that and people can hear that, I think that's important. At least it always was for me when I'm even now still going to shows. I'm like you sound nothing like that. One time I saw a guy in concert. I was like, are you just playing the CD? Like you sound like way too close to the CD as opposed to like, I like the liveness of it. It's a little, a little faster, a little more energy and all this stuff. And I was like, wow, like you really just sound like you're in the studio right now. Maybe you hit play and these $100 tickets were like $90 too much.
Yeah.
Jonah, we need you jumping in, man. Like I need direct questions for you. What is happening over there?
Not a lot.
The silent assassin.
Yeah, pretty much.
Regretting the last 40 minutes of your life. I've seen that look before.
I'm just listening. Got 2 ears and one mouth for a reason.
That's it, man. That's it. Take in more than you say. That's it. That's awesome. Where'd you start learning to play guitar, man? Were you, was like this school or you just like decided you wanted to do this?
I was bored and my little brother, he got a Rocksmith for Christmas and he wasn't playing it. And this is like, I don't know, like 2012 or 2013 or something. I was just like, I didn't have any copies of Guitar Hero 3 lying around anymore because I lost them all. So I was like, I guess this is the next best thing. I started playing that game. I think the first song that I learned how to play was Blitzkrieg Bach by the Ramones because that's like the easiest thing ever. So that's really where it all started from. And then it kind of graduated from like looking up on YouTube, like how to play whatever song it was. There's this guy named Marty who wears like a funny hat. Watched him a lot. He's a great guy.
Marty
Words. Yeah. Very short. Anybody
That was Marty.
Yeah, anybody that plays play guitar is always like they know who that guy is. But other than that, it's kind of just like being in my basement and throwing on my dad's CD thing and like playing along to the albums. That's kind of what really I just did for fun when I was like 13 through 16, pretty much.
Just for fun, you'd played music by ear, just for fun.
Not by ear, not by ear.
Okay. Okay.
I had to Google it and I had to use YouTube videos, but then I remembered it and then I was playing with that. I still can't really do that too well.
Yeah, that's awesome. So there was, everyone has a phase like, oh, I'm going to be in music. I'm going to play the guitar. And I went to Guitar Center and I'm left-handed. And I was like, hey, I've never played before. I want to do this. And they're like, okay, like, you left or right-handed? And I was like, well, I'm left. And I looked at the guitars. And I think the cheapest acoustic for left-handed they in stock was like 280. I was like, I'm going to spend 280 and quit this in like 10 minutes anyway. And he's like, well, if you never played or like, oh, like Hendrix restrung his strings upside down. It's like, do I like, buddy, do I look like I'm not restringing this? Like, I don't even know how to do it the right way, let alone the wrong way to make it the right way. So he's like, well, if you've never done it before, like, you can do it either way. And I got a right-handed guitar and I got the Sublime self-titled album, tabs, book to go through. And they gave me some free thing that had like a Spanish type of happy birthday. Mary had a little lamp. I could do zero of the Sublime stuff. There wasn't YouTube for me to find out how to like slide down. Like there were parts where you just like, slide your fingers down the fret. And I was just like, I did not get it at all. It was, thankfully, it was only $100. Got 280, which has been fucking wasted. But I know there's I don't know if it's the Guitar Smith thing you're talking about or not. There's one you can plug into the TV, and it's almost a Guitar Hero, but like real chords and everything that you're doing.
Yeah.
And I almost want to get that and like force my kids to do it because I regret that I can't play an instrument.
I mean, it works. You just got to need like a PS3, I guess, whatever the last box that came out on. Plugs into it's just disc, you just plug it in put it in the PlayStation and then it plug in your guitar to like a dongle, I think, or something. I don't remember how it works, but basically your guitar plugs into the PS3 and then it can tell what notes you're playing and like if you're playing it wrong or not. But I don't know. I couldn't do it without YouTube. Being self-taught back in the day before the internet is definitely way more impressive than it is now. I didn't get guitar lessons because you don't really need them anymore. Like you can just throw on that Marty Schwartz Smoke on the Water video and just
Marty Schwartz. I'm gonna keep screaming that name out. I hope you weren't impressed by my story because it ended with me not being able to play the guitar. So like that was so fucking hard back then. I was like, Jesus.
yeah, I know. I mean, as a lefty, also like when it comes to guitars, like there's Guitar Center is still like old evangelicals like trying to sweep left-handed people under the rug because they're the devil. Like you can't really find the left-handed. I barely even see them at stores. So being left-handed is also like they did not want you to play guitar back in the day.
They have it's like Wayne's World. It's in glass. You have to ask them for it. And it's the one. They're like, "What's $1,000?" I'm like, "You have like 1,000 right-handed ones, and they range in prices from I don't know what the prices are now, but they're like ranging prices from $100 up to 1,000. Like, why is your only left-handed one the most expensive? It's bullshit, man. It's big guitar out to get us. We figured this out. I was hoping not to get too far into conspiracies, but we have figured out left-handers are hated. They don't care about us trying to write with like the spiral notebooks or anything. Like the pain that I go through. People talk about where's my left-handed reparations. You guys understand? I have markers down the side here and have to like explain to why's your hand dirty? Like, oh, because I was just fucking writing all day, man. What are you talking about? Where's the hard work you put in, right-hander, with your clean hand? So you got shows coming up in May. What's happening in May?
We just have one of our friends who books shows asked us to be on one in New Brunswick on the 3rd. And other than that, kind of up in the air. So it's like a tentative May show.
It's another show that came about through just a band we made connections with and stuff. So as it goes to show, it's it's the way to do it. If you want to get around, get out of town, you got to know people.
Do you find that exciting or exhausting? So for the podcast, one, I beg friends that I had, like, hey man, you want to come talk band on my show? And hopefully, they say yes, and they bring 2 of their buddies on. And then otherwise, though, it's like just me going around trying to find people to book. And at first, I was kind of exhausted by it. And I was like, Jesus, man, I have to like do this every week or like set this up all the time. But now that only lasted like the first 2 or 3 weeks. And then I find this like exhilarating, but of like, I have to chase this down. Like, who am I finding? Like, who's interesting? Who do I find interesting? Who's the audience going to find interesting? Like, do you find this? It has to be tough. Like, you're hoping, hey, I'm gonna put together this band. People are gonna knock on my door. But like, the reality is, you have to knock on a lot of doors.
Mm-hmm.
Are you like? Do you find that was that a disconnect from your original thoughts, or like, are you excited by that?
It's tough when you're first starting to like get like a string of shows. It's tough to get that first one and like set everything around it. But once you get into like the flow of it and like you start to really feel like the band manager, like a promoter or something, then it's like a project that you take on. It's like really fun for you. So, I like reaching out to people. It sucks when like they don't get back to you and you go like it's like the double text. It's like, oh man, I don't really want to, never want to double text somebody, but
You don't want double text, but triple text is fine, man. Just fuck that double text.
yeah. Once you hit the triple text, I mean, like after the double text, you clearly just don't care. I mean, like
just keep it going.
Show them how vulnerable you are.
Yeah. Add a little crying emoji at the end of it. Just one little
like,
individual tear
please.
coming down. You hear anybody, a business, anybody in success, and they're like, all I did was bother people enough until they said yes. But it's like the hardest thing to do as a normal person, as I consider myself and have a crazy show. But as a normal person, like I never want to bother. Like, oh, they're gonna get annoyed. Like, who gives a shit, man? Like, just keep fucking going. And that's the thing that I found the hardest. But that like, I am pushing myself to become more of a like, if they're gonna say no, they're gonna say no and keep saying no. But like, if I ask once or I ask 10 times, but they're not gonna like, what are they gonna do? Like, say fuck you or something? Like, okay.
Exactly. Then you know it's no, and then you can stop.
And that's definitively no. And then just one more. Like, are you really sure? You sure? You sure?
Slide a note under the door. Like,
Yeah, just a little apology or whatever. I had friends in the neighborhood who bought a house because they left a note in their mailbox like 7 years ago. And the person kept it and was like so impressed that they were like, I love your house. I think it's just nice. And they're like, if it's ever for sale, just call this number and like we would do it. And like 7 years later, the people called. You never know. It's like, just be nuts. Like, just do it. Someone's gonna find it inspirational and then and do something for you that's amazing.
yep, never know.
Yeah. So you're doing your own cold calling, you're doing your own knocking and everything. You're trying to network with other bands. So you're just out there. Like, the more people you play with, you just figure that's the more connections and that can connect you to more people.
hmm Pretty much. I mean, we've gotten lucky enough to meet a couple promoters who promote for like bars and stuff around the state. Like we met one guy, Joe, got us in the Union Firehouse in Mount Holly.
Oh yeah. I drive past
Yeah,
it every day on the way to work.
we played there a couple times last year. Touring bands, we were like one of the local openers. He got us on a bill up in Frenchtown at Artie's Bar and Grill, where Alisana, they like headline more tour back in like the early 2000s and stuff. So the more people you meet, like the more bands you're gonna play with, the more people you're gonna play in front of. Play as many shows as you can at this point, especially when you're at our stage. It's really like you can do all the social media stuff you want. People aren't gonna come out and see it unless you're like have a lot of shows going on. They like see that you're serious about it.
Yeah. What kind of success are you hoping that you get? To preface that, there was this band that opened up for Long Beach Dub All Stars, and Brad Knoll's kid, the lead singer of Sublime, his kid opened up for them. So the opener was this band called Over the Bridge, and they sounded amazing. They played at LBI. They sounded amazing. They were like the very first band though. And after the show, I think I found them on Instagram, or whatever. But I was like, hey man, saw you guys the other night. Like, amazing. You ever want to jump on a podcast? Let me know. So I'm talking to the lead singer, and I was like, hey man, like your sound was like besides like you guys were great, like your sound was amazing. Like, how did that happen? Like, I've seen openers, and even like if their CD's amazing, and we kind of talked about this, Trevor. Like, even if your CD's amazing, like your sound like kind of shitty live. And he's like, oh, like everything was set up, everything we played on. He's like, well, the guitars were ours, but like the drum kit was Long Beach Sub All Stars. Like they set up all the sound, so they didn't have to keep changing it out. And he's like, so like even the mics and everything, so like we got like professional grade quality. Anyway, so as I'm talking to him, he's like, I don't want to tour the country. He's like, I want to be able to take care of my family, like my wife and like my dogs, and be able to say I play music for a living. He's about like leaving for 3 months or 6 months or 1 year and like leaving my friends and my town and all this stuff. Like he had zero interest in that, which like to me, that was like the first time I ever heard of like there was even somebody who thought that way or there was a possibility of it's like it's all or none was like always my thinking. And but I also don't do this for a living or trying to. So like, what are your guys' goals?
I think everybody has their own different version of what that would look like. So I guess we'll just get down. For me personally, I love playing music. I love recording music. To me, the best part about this is that I'm engaging in making something and I'm making music that I specifically want to hear. When we make something, it's something that I want to hear, and I don't, not to say that other bands aren't doing it, but it's nice to say that I made something on my own and enough people like it where that's sustainable for me to live off of and be able to do that for a prolonged period of time. That to me is what success would look like. Anything else that comes with that, whether it be touring the country or even if like you go up and you're going to be like a mega band touring the world, that's cool. But as long as I can take care of myself and the people that are important to me and still be able to say I'm doing this while playing music, that's a success story to me.
We'll get on the line. What about you, Jonah? Do you think it's the same thing?
I think the guy that you were talking to had it pretty right. I mean, I don't have a wife or a dog, so like
It's early, man. They all come. Don't worry.
that's like a young guy. I didn't got no problem. I know a lot of friends who are in other bands and they have gone to played shows in all around. We'll do like a month or two at a time. They visit like the Southeast and like Texas area and then the Bay Area and stuff like that. I think that's cool. My main, to me, success for being in a band is just having people come out to your shows to fill a room whenever you do it. To me, that's really says a lot about a band. Where even if it's just you guys playing, you don't have any other support, people will come out and they'll show up and they'll mosh for you. So that's just kind of my end goal for anything that I do with music.
Awesome, man. What about you, Shane?
Yeah. Real quick, I hate to cut you off. My laptop's on like 4%, so we got a little bit.
Yep,
But-
let's go, and then we'll wrap this up. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Success to you, man. What do you want to do?
Yeah, I would have to agree with them. I don't think I would love to like go play in like other countries around the world, but it's a huge commitment. Everything's got to line up perfectly with with work and your family and just everything else that's going on in your life. I would really like love to just be able to have it just be like a really like a serious hobby that helps just help support like your life and your family. And if you can go on like a tour for like a week, do like a week every now and again, and do like a long weekend where you play like up and down the coast somewhere or something, that would be like ideal for me. Like I don't think I would want to leave for like 3 months every year. That's a huge commitment, and like who can take off work for that much? At that point, that's like your full-time thing. So
That's the goal, man. Full time.
Yeah,
The regular job. All right, we're at 3%, man. I'm not cutting you off. All right. You guys are playing in May, right? Let's plug your stuff. Let's get it going. People can hear you. Go down. You're on Instagram. You're on whatever individual group, whatever it is. Go ahead.
May 3rd, Cinco de Mayo, New Brunswick. Don't know the other bands we're playing, but they'll be.
I'll find them out. I'll put them in the show notes. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, we'll post the flyer on our Instagram, measures.nj. Mr. Frog from Smiling Friends. That's our logo thing that we have on Instagram. See us there. New EPs coming out. A brand new project and a remaster of our original EP Real will be on Spotify, Apple Music, pretty much everywhere you can get music relatively soon. Stay connected on our Instagram for any upcoming news on that or any shows we have coming up. New merch also coming down the line too, also on Instagram. So key factor is follow our Instagram, measures.nj, to find all our stuff.
Perfect, man. I'll put it in the show notes. Do you guys do anything individually music on your own, or is this all just Measures or Bust?
I mean, if you're in Philly and you want to see Headless World at Cousin Danny's on April 9th, playing with Distort, Milspec, I forget, but Distort's awesome. So
Awesome, man. What's the Instagram follow for that? Or
no Instagram.
No. Okay. I'll get Shane to tell me the details. I'll put in the show notes too.
Like, the other band doesn't have anything out on anything yet, so it's just showing up.
live on.
Yeah,
This is breaking news. Then we've got.
You want to hear it? You can go see them.
Yeah. I might create the Instagram and sell it back to you. Like I know they do this for like NBA players up and coming. Some like 6th grade kid. They're like, oh, we're gonna register his domain name. I got it. I'm onto you, Jonah. Don't worry about it. Fellas, I appreciate it. Thank you. I made you guys jump through hoops. There was rescheduling, like fuck Zoom, fuck Xfinity, like the amount that I pay for cable, for internet and for it not to work.
We're trying to get.
It's terrible. My TV never works. So slow. It sucks.
They jacked my price up, astronomical prices. I have no special channels whatsoever. I pay for all this other stuff on the side, and I can't. Well, and you're gone. Anyway, that was Measures the band. They were awesome. I'm sorry that my rant included, Xfinity and all this stuff as they cut out. So that was Trevor, Jonah, and Shane. Shane's computer crashed, so that's it. Guys, thanks for coming on. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you soon. Take care. All right, everyone. That was our show. Don't forget to leave a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you stream your podcast. Like and follow the podcast on Facebook and Instagram to stay up to date in all things wild and weird. Check out the links in the show notes for more information on our guests. The biggest support you can offer is to tell everyone about the podcast. Until next time.